Hey YouTubians, it's Tony here from We Try Anything. Channel likes Try Anything, so you don't have to. And in today's video, what we're going to do, we can take a look at a watch from the Casio vintage range, and this one being the Casio DBC-32, which has a module number of 2888. As usual, what we'll do in the review, we'll take it out of the box, we'll have a look around the actual Casio watch, and then what we'll then do is talk about quickly gloss over the features that this watch has, and there is quite a few features to this watch, and then what we'll do is pop it on our wrist and say it's like to wear. So as you can see, it's a bit of a different box to the usual Casio affair, where it's not the usual dark boxes that Casio do normally do for their watches. And interestingly, it does have a nice aesthetic, you know, giving it that kind of vintage feel to it. Now it did surprise me when I pulled it out the actual envelope from Amazon, and this is available from Amazon where I got it from. And just as a matter of interest, I did get this for around the £25 mark. Now I know it's sometimes gets listed as at £35, but for £25 it's well worth looking at. So I'll just quickly unbox it, and there is a link below for this watch in the Amazon to buy it off Amazon. And as you can see, it's the usual Casio affair with the actual label, as it were, and the instructions just popped into the back of the box, and the usual cellophane that you get, or like plastic bag where the actual watch is held with the foam, and also you get this nice little as it were protector for the actual main part of the watch. So I'll just take that off, and it is a very nice looking watch, really. And there is other versions of this watch, sorry, not other versions, but it is, with it being a calculator and data bank watch, obviously something that harks back to what would be the 80s. And I do remember in the 80s, you know, going through the likes of the Argos catalogues that used to be out in that time frame, and looking at the likes of what digital watches and the functions that that the actual Casio digital watches has, like the early Casio calculator watches and stuff like that. And this is more of a modern refresh of it, really. You can still buy the rubber keyed Casio watch, which is the Casio CA53, via Amazon and Argos, as well as there is a bit more of a posher, again in the Casio vintage range, which is the Casio Men's silver or gold data bank watch, which is the DBC-611, which I'm showing images of now. And this one is, I would say, like the mid-range of these type of watches from Casio, in that it's got a lot of functions. It looks quite not I wouldn't say premium, though you can get a metal, I believe, a metal version of this watch, but you know, this one being the slightly cheaper version of the two. First impressions, really like it. Now the actual strap and everything here, it is resin, and resin not like the usual resin that Casio do, and it hasn't got any peaks or troughs, so it's going to be quite comfortable on the wrist. It is quite smooth underneath, as it is there as well. And interestingly, the actual strap has a little hump on the end, so I'd imagine it would stop it from like slipping out of where the actual strap retainer is. So it's a nice little touch, and you know, keeping it securely on your wrist. The back is the usual Casio affair, where it's stainless steel or brushed stainless steel, as it were. And as you do get on some Casios, it does mention some of the actual functions on the watch, as well as obviously being stainless steel, made in China, and also it supports 13 languages that you can have this watch in. And with some of them being, it's more the display, if anything, with it being English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Dutch, Danish, German, Italian, Swedish, Polish, Russian, amongst other languages. And this one here, if you press the top left hand button, is set to English. So you can, if you do buy this on the continent, as it were, of Europe and Eastern Europe, you can change the actual language to suit your needs, really, which is a nice little touch from Casio. The other thing to mention about this watch as well, there's no real mention of any sort of water resistance, which I do feels a little bit of a shame for this watch, because it would have been great even if it had a water resistance of about 5 meters, because that would help give this watch a bit more appeal. But on the Casio website, I believe it does say it's splash resistant, but I would just keep it away from water or any form of, you know, like I wouldn't go in the shower, in the bath, or anything with this watch, because it will destroy the internal workings of this watch, or as it were, the electronics of this watch. So, you know, just bear that in mind. It does have a 10-year battery that will power this watch, or up to 10 years depending on the use or the use case of this watch. But just looking around the actual case, what you've got is a matte black kind of a resin plasticky case, which is about 38mm wide, just from pusher to pusher. And also it does taper in a little here, just so it's not like it's got a nice tapering design, so it's not a blocky design to it as such. The strap, as I've mentioned, is 18mm wide, and obviously that tapers in as well, and it has got the usual plastic Casio emblazoned pin and buckle going on here. And obviously the buttons again are plastic. Also you've got the 4 plastic pushers that go on here. Now looking at the actual display, it does have a very clear, easy to read display. Obviously you've got the the actual day of the week listed above, which obviously you can just press, as I've shown you earlier, you can just check which language the actual watch is set in. To the right you've got the indicators here, whether it's got an auto light, whether the auto light's on, 3-second light delay, or it's muted obviously, so you can't hear the beeps that this watch can produce. Time listed above, and also what is a little bit additional to what would be the as it were the bog standard Casio CA53, again the rubber version which I'm showing you here, is that you've got the actual whole date listed on the display as well. So it's one of them watches you can just quickly look, get an idea of the time and the date within the year that you're in. So it's got that nice, very clear, easy to read information appeal to it, which is great. Now, as I've mentioned, the actual, it does, in terms of the actual LED, it does feature a orange LED, which is down to the bottom left hand corner. Now what I'll quickly show you here is what it's like within semi-darkness as such, and you can actually set it so it's an auto light, or you can set the actual auto light on this watch, where so when you flick your wrist it can light up the actual display, and it is quite easy to do. And as I've said, it is within the instructions listed below, and I believe it does have a 3-second delay as well, which you can turn on for that light. One other thing I haven't mentioned is the actual case design. Now the case design is an interesting design in which it isn't the usual flat affair that you would get in something like, I don't know, one of the Casios I've got featured here, where it's just a straight design as such, which is this one I'm showing you, which is the W756, which I have reviewed on the channel. It's got a slight curvature to it, which is, it just helps when you've got it on the wrist, it will follow the slight curve on your wrist, and obviously the way they've done the actual case back as well does follow that curve, which is a real nice little feature of this watch, and that's something I just meant to add while I was talking about the actual case. Obviously covering this case you've got the dial window, and this is a domed resin glass, which is it is prone to scratching, don't get me wrong, so if it's something that would offend you, or the actual scratches that this watch would pick up, and don't forget with it being a plastic case, again these sort of watches do pick them up, and I've showed you on, if you look at some of the other reviews on the channel where I have bought watches from eBay which are pre-loved, they do pick them up. But it's got an actual dome into the actual, as it were, acrylic crystal, which allows a level of stability and resistance against pressure, which is quoted directly from the Casio website here. In terms of features, or just going on about the actual features, as well as obviously you've got the auto calendar and stuff, which once set it'll always display the correct date up to 2099. So this watch will keep a good date record, you know, 28 days in February, leap years and stuff like that, up to that date. And as well as that, you do have the many other functions that this watch has. So the first function I'll quickly talk about is the actual database function, or the telememo as it's known. Now this watch will hold up to 25 sets of data with an 8-character name, as I'm showing you here. So in this example I'm showing you, I've just typed in Casio, which scrolls along to the left, and it has a 15-digit number going on here. So I've just put in a random number just to give you an idea of what you would expect to see on the actual telememo display. And if you wanted to go to the next field, just press that button there, and for example this is testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. And this has a, it shows you the remaining amount of data entries that you are allowed, which in this instance now will be 23. And it will support the characters of up to 13 languages, as I've mentioned earlier, which include ones like Portuguese, Spanish, French, German, etc. really. So there's a lot that you can do within this telememo. The next one is, I'll just quickly cycle through to it, is the calculator. Now on this calculator you will notice that the time is also displayed here, but the only thing I will say is that even though these numbers are easy to operate and easy to use, or these actual buttons, you tend to find that you will probably end up having to hold it with two hands, and you do have to press quite hard just to get the numbers put in. So if I pressed it lightly, it won't register, but you do have to give it some form of press. So it will do all forms of simple calculations. And also, if you do press this button here, if you do press that button there and you enter in a value, it will also do currency conversion. Now it's not based, it doesn't go off to the internet to get the actual daily figures for the currency conversion. You just have to put in what the current conversion rate is, and then obviously you can enter the amount of money that you're looking to convert. So a little feature that's worth having on this watch, and it does add to the overall appeal of the actual calculator function with a currency converter if required. The other thing this watch does feature is 5 alarms. Now the actual 5 alarms, you are including a daily alarm, monthly alarm, alarm for a particular time of each day of a particular month, date alarm, snooze alarm, and an hourly time signal, which all can be just scrolled through either that way or that way. You know, you can either go forward or back, and then just to show the hourly time signal, which this is what it is. Once you set it to go off on the hour every hour, there will be a little indicator down the bottom left hand corner. It will be set for on the hour everywhere, and you can turn it on and turn it off as such. So with them 5 alarms, if you do require anything that has a multiple alarm feature or something just to remind you on a certain date at a certain time to do something, then this will help you do it. And then the next one is Stopwatch. Now Stopwatch is a simple affair. It's start, stop, does a split time, and also will do first and second finishes. So it's just the usual start, stop sort of thing really, and obviously you can have a split time if you just press the top left hand corner and then you just stop it and then reset it. It's as easy as that. There's nothing complicated. It hasn't got any complicated stopwatch parameters or anything that you can put in, and it is super handy if you're looking to time yourself on a run, or if you are, you know, doing simple things like working out how long you've spent cooking food or anything like that. So it is a great little feature. The next function is dual time. Now dual time is a very handy way of simultaneously displaying 2 different times. Now this time could be a different part of the world where you are communicating with people in, say, New York, which is 5 hours behind, or in Europe, which tends to be an hour or etc. ahead. And it's also helpful if you are a bit of a world traveling, that you can set the time up so where you're heading to, their local time could be displayed here. So again, if you are talking to or dealing people in other parts of the world, you can set it up so it's more appropriate for you to communicate with them at a more social hour. And finally, the only thing I will say you are missing from this watch is a countdown timer, which is just such a shame, because obviously you got all these great little features and you got such a big display to feature these on. It's just a shame that Casio didn't pop a countdown timer on there. And that's it really. That's the functions just quickly glossed over. I will be doing a tutorial video, as I've mentioned, and the next thing is obviously to pop it on my wrist and say what it's like to wear. Right, here it is on the wrist, and I've got to say it is a real nice, it's a standout timepiece for me. I really do like the look of this watch, and it is quite a long watch in terms of, it's around 50 millimeters lug to lug, just approximately, but it's so comfortable on the wrist. The actual curvature of the watch, it helps with the comfort factor on the wrist. You don't really feel it. I would imagine if it was just a flat watch like the actual, you know, as I've shown you here, if it was like a flat watch as such, then it would probably just be more proud of the wrist, which probably wouldn't add to its bulk. But the way that they've actually designed it with that curve, I do think it just really does add to how it feels. And obviously with it being a more rectangular watch as opposed to, or oblong as opposed to the normal circular watches that I have featured on this channel, obviously it doesn't hinder the hand movement or anything like that. If anything, you just don't feel it here. And it is quite a lightweight watch, with it being mainly like a plastic stroke stainless steel setup really, at about 34 grams. So you don't feel it on your wrist as you would do with, say, something like the metal version of this watch. And I just really love it. And if you are you know, if you do hark back to the likes of the 80s or the early Casio watches from the 80s, or the more modern interpretations of the Casio watches, which is like the CA53W, which I've mentioned, then I would probably, as opposed to looking at that one, I'd probably look at something like this if you are looking at a kind of a calculator watch, unless you really do want to go for that rubber keyed feel and look, or real authentic Casio calculator watch. Then yes, by all means look at the Casio CA53, but I would consider this one as well, because it is more of a modern refresh of that watch, and there's a lot more information presented on the screen, as well as the time, the day and the date. It's just really nice, and I really do like it. And in comparison to, say, some of the other watches that I have featured on the channel, then it's not an all-time favorite, but it's definitely up there in terms of how this watch looks, wears and feels. And obviously you've got all the functionality of the calculator, the telememo, stopwatch, 5 alarms and the hourly signal, and obviously you've got that auto light which you can set up, and it's just got a lot of functionality for the money that you paid, or the £25. And as I've mentioned, it will go probably back up to £35, but if you keep your eye on Amazon and set up an Elite via Camel, I believe it's called, it will indicate when it goes down in price again, because it's a watch that's definitely worth that £25. And if you ever do get the chance to buy it, then it's well worth thinking about. But the only disclaimer I would say is obviously that water resistant. Just be aware that it isn't water resistant as some of the other Casios that have been featured on this channel. So if that's an issue for you, then I would probably steer away from it. But otherwise, such a great watch. So I hope you liked the video, and if you did, then click on the thumbs up icon. It really helps the channel. If you want to see more videos coming from the channel, plus a full tutorial of this watch coming soon, then click on the subscription button below. And thank you for watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.